Tippity top of the morning to ya. It is a beautiful, balmy 66 degrees out this morning. The birds are singing. The air is relatively smoke-free. One of the joys of living in the valley is all the smoke whenever there's a fire going on. Alright, so first thing I want to talk about is debates and the value of debates. Much like philosophy, debating is of a very limited value in the real world. You may notice that scientists don't debate to find the truth. And in fact, if you have ever watched scientists debate creationists, it always comes down to the scientist pointing at all of the evidence that absolutely just obliterates any claims that the creationist is making. And the creationist points at his holy book, and neither one can move the other because neither one accepts the other's evidence. And there you go. You don't get the truth. You may figure out which side you prefer. I mean, you may like the creationist argument. It may appeal to you. You may like the scientist's argument. It may appeal to you. Or you can rely on the facts, or you can rely on the holy book. Whatever one floats your boat, you can do. That's the problem with debates. It doesn't actually bring you to the truth. You may notice that in court, you don't debate. I mean, they may try to play it that way on TV, but and maybe some states will have some variations on this, but the way I've been, whenever I've been in court, it's always been basically the same way. If you actually do get to a trial, I mean, 99% of handling a case is not trial. But if you do get to trial, then, or even when you're in court on like a hearing or something like that, or in a deposition, it's one side is talking, the other side is quiet, and the side that's talking is generally asking questions, trying to bring the truth out. Asking questions, not to the other side, but to a witness. In a trial, you'd have opening and closing arguments. But, you know, it's not a debate at that point. Well, I guess, like, so at the very closing argument, the prosecution goes first, says their shtick. The defense can, I guess, respond directly to what the prosecution says. Typically, though, you'll see the defense will have nervously and sweatily prepared a statement to go over. You know, they'll prepped it to make sure that they don't miss any important points. And then the prosecution, I've never been prosecution, so I don't know how exactly they prepare for their closing remarks. I'm sure their first one is prepped and their second one is more responsive. But that's as close as you get. I mean, and again, the point behind holding court the way we do is that we're trying to get to the truth. Or at least ostensibly we're trying to get to the truth. We're trying to figure out what the facts are, and then the law will be applied to those facts. I'm not trying to do the wrap up, are we? So debating is of limited to no practical use. You're never going to sway your debate opponent. And I know in all those, like, in all the TV sets and everything, they'll have like, oh, you know, this side of the argument is like 20%, and that side of the argument has 20%, and they're 60% undivided. And at the end, we'll relook at these, and at the end, it's like, oh, so now it's 60% on this side and 40% on that side. So it looks like, you know, this side won the debate because they swung more, 2/3 of the undecided vote. But I strongly suspect it doesn't seem that that's the way that life works. The people who are claiming to be undecided probably were decided and just wanted to hear the arguments just to make sure they were still on the right side. In their mind, the right side. I've seen some psychological studies that kind of back this sort of thing up. Like I said, I've been in sales, and what I have learned in sales, there's always, since there's money to be made in sales, there's a lot of money spent in figuring out how to do sales better. And it's a skunk running away. I don't know if you could see it. He's still over there. Son of a bitch. Hate skunks. I'm glad he ran. My dumb dog was about to chase him too because he's stupid. He's cute. He's cute. Come on. He's cute, but he's stupid. Yeah, so sales. They do a lot of studies for sales, trying to figure out how to manipulate people into preferring their brand. And one of the big things that they found is that people walk in, like if you're selling a car, if you're selling cars, period, people walk in, the first car they like, the first car they look at, the first car that, not necessarily look at, the first car that their eyes linger on, that's the car they're going to buy if they're going to buy a car, typically. Now, obviously, they'll be like, oh, I went to the car lot and I looked at the first car, but then I figured I didn't like it. And I'm talking about, like, generally, all things being equal, the first thing that catches your eye, that you linger on. Oh, I like this one. Oh, really? That's, if you're going to buy, there's a very high probability that that's the one. And then maybe you'll try to talk yourself out of it. And the goal of being a good salesman, this is like free sales advice. I've been sales and sales management and things like that. The goal of being a good salesman isn't to try to convince someone to buy the thing you want them to buy. I mean, obviously you're going to try to do that if you're going to get paid more for it, but the big point is to reinforce their decision that they've already made. They make the decision in their head on an emotional level. And that's everybody. That's me. That's you. I mean, everybody wants to be like, I'm cold, hard logic. But no, humans are emotional creatures. So we make the decision on an emotional basis, and then we rationalize it to ourselves. We reverse engineer the reasons why we're going to do it. So if people are wondering why I don't debate the law with people like ethics and Snooker B, it's not because I fear them, it's because there's nothing for me to gain. The law is what it is, and it really doesn't matter if I persuade you that I'm a better orator than they are. It doesn't matter if they persuade you that they're a better orator than I am. It doesn't change the reality of what is or isn't. And the reality of what is I hope you're guessing, a big component of my videos. I mean, you can want, Mr. Freeman, you can want for there to be a right to travel that means a right to drive your car. But there isn't. Oh yeah, I've had enough people link that to me that I know I gotta cover that. So don't delete it, Mr. Freeman. At least not till I've had a chance to grab it. It's not a debate. It's not a debate. If, like, let's say that I got on to a live chat to debate Mr. Freeman about his right to travel gish gallop of links and one-liners a la Mark Stevens. In order for him to win, I have to not know what one of those are. Obviously, I have to look them up. And there are websites out there dedicated to debunking this right to travel nonsense crap. And the only reason why Mr. Freeman put that crap up there is, number one, he didn't read goddamn one of those cases. I guarantee you, he didn't read one of them. Because if he read one of them, he'd realize it's not talking about what he thinks it's talking about. And he wouldn't put it up on his list. Well, presumably, unless he's just trying to get you to believe. I like this false reality. I like the false reality, so I'm going to try to get everybody to believe it. The real reality is for suckers. It doesn't matter that if you get pulled over without a license, you end up with fines. Oh, hey, you know, there's this one guy, Ethics Instead. He got popped for, what was it, DUI and no license and no registration in Florida, and he had to beat feet out of there because well, it all sounds good on paper that I don't need a license to drive my car. It all sounds good on paper, but reality comes and smacks you across the face like your pimp. Speaking of, I don't know where I was going with that. I was probably halfway through something. You all have the option of rewinding to point out where I lost my train of thought. Freeman is going on about his little Mark Stevens list. Yeah, so if, like, all he has to do is find one that I don't know, it'd be like, well, that was the one. That was the magic one that proves you have a right to travel via driving a car. There are no Supreme Court cases that say that you have a right to drive a car without a license. There is no, like, if you go into the Constitution, there is no listed stated right to travel. There is an implied right to travel. It's a substantive due process kind of thing in the 4th and the 14th Amendment. It's in two places. It's kind of an implied thing, and what it's talking about, the reason why it's in the, was it in the 4th and the 14th? I know it's in the 14th Amendment. No, it's in one of the articles. It's article, oh God, it's in an article. I don't remember which article it is. Is it Article 4? I want to say it's Article 4. I'm probably wrong. But there is, in one of the articles, there is it's the privileges and immunities in, I want to say, Article 4, and it's in the privileges and immunities of Article 14. Again, I'm not at a computer, and I wasn't planning this out ahead of time. I had everybody linking me that Freeman video, and so I started playing it while I was on my walk. So this is literally me just talking off the top of my head. But it's in the privileges and immunities section, and they've determined that there is a right to travel. But that the right to travel that they've determined is there is a right to travel between the states. So if you want to live in state X and work in state Y, you can do that. If you want to pick up and move from state X to state Y, you can do that. State X can't stop you and state Y can't stop you. You have a right to travel between the states. You have less of a right to travel out of the country. I believe there was a case that made it to the Supreme Court where they determined that it was constitutional for the U.S. to ban, like, U.S. citizens from traveling to, like, Cuba. I don't remember the name of that case right now. But the big deal of the right to travel is the right to travel between states. It's not a right to drive. It's not a right to fly. It's not a right to do anything other than travel. And before you get in your vessel this morning to travel to work, just remember that driving is a specific subset of travel. You have a right to travel, but they didn't say that you have a right to do all the forms of travel. You can't get one of those rocket cars that they take out onto those flats, those desert flats, and they run them to try to break the world speed records. You can't put one of those on the road. Well, I have a right to travel, so I have the right to travel by any and every means necessary. No. the implied right to travel from the 14th Amendment, and I want to say Article 4, is that you can go between states. They can't stop you. If you're going to walk, they can't stop you. I mean, they could tell you can't walk along the side of a freeway or something like that, but they can't say, no, 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 you can't leave the state, or you can't enter this state. It doesn't say anything about, it's part of the police powers of a state. They get to regulate who gets to drive a car. And I thought it was kind of stupid in his video. I'll probably cover this elsewhere, but he's like, oh, if you think making people have licenses works, well, it hasn't stopped all accidents. Oh, well, I guess we should get rid of the license requirement. And you know, since having murder be illegal hasn't stopped all murders, I guess we should just get rid of the laws against murder. And you know, since having laws against rape hasn't stopped all rapes, I guess we should just get rid of laws against rape. What Mr. Freeman fails to understand, because of his limited perspective and his biased viewpoint, is that how would it be prior to or without these licensing requirements? Because you got to remember, there was a time before they required driver's licenses, and you had like 12-year-olds driving getaway cars for bank robbers and things like that. How bad would it be if we didn't require some form of licensing, some form of testing to make sure that, number one, you can see, number two, you understand the rules of the road, number three, you have the hand-eye coordination to drive a vehicle. I mean, it's basic stuff, and it's not there to eliminate all of the accidents, but it's there to reduce them. It's a balancing test, as many things in life are. I want a delicious ice cream treat, but I don't want to get fat. It's a balancing test. I'll have an ice cream treat today, I won't have one tomorrow. It's a balancing test. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.